welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. Recently, there have been several agitations towards a possible increase in electricity tariff and increase in fuel pump price. On this week's edition of the program, we're discussing about all these issues and how it affects workers. All is now set for a mass rally and strike across Kaduna State following the mass sack, redundancy and casualization of workers in the state. The President, Nigerian Labour Congress, Ayuba Waba, at different fora had called on the Kaduna State government to reverse the recent mass sack of workers, describing it as arbitrary and cruel.
We have already declared that there will be a 5 days withdrawal of services, all services, in public and private services in Kaduna, and that where there is no reversal of this decision, it will follow up by a national withdrawal of services, because we believe he is not alone in this fight against workers. We are aware some governors are part of it, and also some neoliberal forces. So, comrades, we should be prepared for a battle to address this fundamental violation of workers' rights by this governor.
Findings reveals that officers in grade levels 01 to 06 have been converted to casual workers, and a circular has been sent directing that no local government in Kaduna State shall have more than 50 staff in its employ. The state government also effected the compulsory retirement of officers that are 50 years old and above, and the compulsory retirement of officers on grade level 14. According to Section 20, subsection 1, 2, and 3 of Nigeria's Labour Act, the employer shall inform the trade union or workers' representatives concerned of the reasons for and the extent of the anticipated redundancy. This appears not too important to the state government. Meanwhile, in line with NLC directives, members of the National Union of Electricity Employees have announced that there will be a total blackout in Kaduna State from 12 a.m. this Saturday, the 15th. Also, the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers announced total withdrawal of services from Kaduna State from 12 a.m. Sunday, 16th May 2021, following series of anti-labor acts of the Kaduna State Governor, Nasiru El-Rufai. It will be recalled that Kaduna State Governor sacked teachers over 2 years ago and is yet to pay the sacked workers their retirement benefits.
Frankly, I think the question of tariff is secondary. I think the primary problem is whether people are getting value for money. And I am sure that the question of price will be a different conversation if people were getting proper service. I'll give you an example. It used to be that people complained bitterly about cable television, and people thought the prices were just crazy. And so we engaged the cable television service providers and said, look at the complaints about your services. Why don't we just address the quality of the service and your responsiveness to consumers first, and then we'll come and discuss the question of price. And they did. Now, it doesn't mean that people still don't think the prices are high, but the conversation has somewhat changed. Now it's when people are dissatisfied again, you can see people complain about price. Fundamentally, people want to pay a fair value for whatever they're getting. People are not robbers. And so, if you really think about it, the greatest thing people complain about with respect to the cost of electricity is, one, they're not getting the service. People complain about estimated billing, saying, I didn't get this electricity you're charging me for. Now that the tariffs have increased, you can find people saying, oh my goodness, something that cost me 25,000 naira is now costing 50,000 naira. That's typical. That is absolutely natural. Each time prices of anything increase, even if it's a fair price, people will feel it. And I'm not saying that the pricing is fair, but I'm saying that if we address supply, if we address transparency, if we make sure people are getting what they pay for, then whatever is left of the pricing conversation will be a much, much simpler matter. It won't be conflated with the issue of service or whether people are feeling exploited or robbed. And so estimated billing, quite frankly, has no method to it. The companies claim that there is a method, but it's very clear from the complaints we receive that that method doesn't apply consistently. And so if we fix that, if everyone is metered, let's start by making sure everyone is metered. Then the complaints reduce to this thing is spinning too quickly. But I guarantee you, half the complaints will go down. Then that remaining half about it spinning too quickly will be a different conversation. And you might ask me, why don't you address that conversation now? It serves no purpose. If I address the conversation of how quickly the meter is spinning, even if you fix the few meters that are in force and spinning too quickly, how does that address the larger complaint about I have an electricity bill for electricity that I did not consume? That for me is the big issue, and that's where we should focus our initial energy.
There have been meetings, we both combined electricity, increase in electricity tariff and the removal of subsidy on petroleum. But what we did is that we set up aside a subcommittee made up of professionals to go around, hold village town meetings and discuss and take a conclusive measure based on professionalism. And since they have been going around, we have met once to review, and we gave them further assignment, and we have not been able to meet since then to review the further assignment. Majority of Nigerians are going through hell now. Things have been very tough. Inflation rate has been very high. There have been mass unemployment and underemployment, and the little that is available is being managed by Nigerians. So any extra burden now will definitely affect Nigerians. So that's why we said they should go and look at it from the professional angle. Let's look at where we can dot I's, where we can cross this, and make life meaningful to Nigerians. And when they get back, I know our argument and our negotiation will still be on that basis that yes, we may deserve it, yes, we may need it, but as long as there is no other palliative, there is no other source of income, everything Nigerians need to do depend on the little that they are having. A single Nigerian working now have over 20 people that depends on that meagre salary, and you can hear federal government now, I know Labour have said that is not possible, saying that they still want to go and do a reduction of money. Well, the minimum wage that we bargain for then, a majority of the private companies have not been able to implement. Even some state governments have not implemented, which means, and that's one, the negotiation was done prior to the COVID-19, prior to when there have been this high inflation, prior to when there have been some other people that are source or that can provide their own income, like hairdressing salon, barbing salons, bar owners and co, that COVID have affected, and we are still thinking about increasing or not paying. This is not the right time for all these things.
On the Profile Interview segment this week, I will be speaking with the National Deputy President of the Nigerian Labour Congress, Comrade Joe Ajero, who also doubles as the General Secretary of the National Union of Electricity Employees. It tells me about the several challenges the electricity sector is faced with, and also recommendations on what has to be done to ensure that the privatization of this sector doesn't affect the ordinary citizens. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
A lot is happening in the electricity sector, and of course we know that the issues in the electricity sector affect the normal citizen as well as workers. Can you bring us up to speed about the conversation you've been having with the Presidential Committee as regards increase in electricity tariff?
Well, between the last meeting to date, there is no other meeting, no conversation, nothing new. They have not reconvened the committee meetings on tariff and even on pump price of petroleum products. So we are still where we were as at January, February. No new development.
Are you saying that there might not be any form of increase despite the complaints from some other sectors?
Well, I think if we don't take time, they will increase. Because that seems to be their primary business these days. Increase in tariff of electricity. And then there seems not to be an end to it. It's becoming perpetual. The NEC doesn't seem to have any other business as far as we are concerned. And to a very large extent, they don't even need the input of Nigerians these days. Because under a delegated agency, is performing their function, they are supposed to consult consumers and other Nigerians. But unfortunately, one of the policies is that even after delegation, they must still do what they want to do. So that has emboldened them, not even to consult consumers, not consult stakeholders as prescribed by the law. So they go ahead and increase. So that's the situation. Unless Nigerians decide to stop them.
A lot has been said already, but moving forward, what can be the rescue plan towards ensuring that the government perhaps recover its assets and maybe allow it to be a public enterprise so that more Nigerians can have access to electricity?
Well, I'm not sure that the government intends to recover its assets. I'm not too sure. Even the little they have by virtue of the privatization policy, which allows them to control 40% of, the properties that were sold. Now, government is not even asking questions on, any dividend on 40%. So one will not go to offer advice where it is not sought. And I think from inception, the aim wasn't to maybe make it efficient, make it effective. Ordinarily, they could have contemplated other options, commercialization, maybe deregulating the sector, and all that. And if they had opened up, which we thought was their main reason when they were licensing about 25 other companies, we could have tried that experiment before outright sell. So, but they didn't try it, because if they had tried it, and the experiences are abound, that in Jos you have NESCO operating side by side with NEPA. Now, each organization can operate with their own tariff, and when they operate with their own tariff, this private sector, this is public sector, they have maybe a cheaper tariff, but the private sector, have more efficiency, so to say. If they can give you 24 hours, and public sector can give you 10 hours, but their tariff is low. What you do is to look at the issues, because that is what market is all about. Market is all about choice. If I go into the market, I see Jabu Gari, I see yellow Gari, I see this, I see rice. What do I buy? I should be able to buy the one that based on my pocket. But government didn't do that. Government just transferred laterally public monopoly to private monopoly. And that's why we are suffering now. If there's no generation today, Nigerians will be in darkness. If there's generation, they will have. So the same set of private sector, and the structure was very, very defective. You have a structure that is based on zone. If you have in Abuja here, you have AEDC. They maintain monopoly in Abuja. You get to a Lagos, you have Ikeja and Eko, they have their own areas of specialization. Now they took one company, NEPA, and split them into 18 companies with the same 4,000 megawatts by saying Ikeja, Ibadan, Enugu. That was what happened. Nothing changed. So there's no way that will bring in efficiency. And by the time you do it, you have 18 MDs, 18 directors, and all that. So, and Nigerians are funding them, their salaries, everything.
So if nothing has changed, what is now the importance or the advantage of privatizing the electricity sector?
As a person, I did not see any importance so far. Because if you look at it, they came under a false assumption. The false assumption they had was that they said they were coming with managerial competence. They are coming with technical competence. They are bringing in foreign direct investment. Now, these three assumptions, they didn't have any. So if they didn't have any, there's nothing to impact on Nigerians. There was, between that time and now, the only thing that happened was that we have lost so many workers. And by that, we have lost many Nigerians that have a source of livelihood for them and their families. Nigerians who were paying 20 naira before are now paying 100 naira. Very well. And now before, under the old system, at least every year, you can, as an organization with age workforce, at least 1,000 people will retire, and they will employ new 1,000 people. People were being employed. What we're having now is outsourcing, all manner of precarious work, you know. But for the investors, they are smiling to the banks. They are making, you know, a lot of money. So if you look at it, you know, no matter how you look at it, there are people who are benefiting. But 99% of people or 90% of the people have one story to tell or the other.
According to reports that we've gotten here, it suggests that the discos are collecting as much as 25,000 naira from Nigerians to purchase a prepaid meter. How would you react to this?
Well, I'm aware that the federal government made available some money so that the country will be metered. And I'm equally aware that some of the indigenous companies, you know, have been given that mandate to mass produce prepaid meters. I was able to visit one or two of the companies, you know, from our committee. But what we discovered in most of those companies is that even the ones they produce, though they didn't have enough resources then to mass produce, now that they are producing, even the ones they produce, that the discos are not even clearing it. Now you start to wonder, is it that, you know, they don't want to meter Nigerians? Well, nevertheless, as somebody that has experience in the sector, they don't maximize profit when they meter people. Because if they meter people and then they don't give supply for 1 month, they won't get anything. If they give only 1 hour supply, they will get for 1 hour. But if it is an estimation, they will look at the house and decide what to give you this month. Next month, you can have 100% of that. And that gives them more money. And that equally enables them to bill. Their billing process, they say, okay, this month we are going to make 1 billion. Now, from the office, they allocate what every house should pay. It's like working from an answer. You know, so I think the issue of prepaid meters are very, very important. And the federal government should take it seriously since they have provided funding for it. If that happens, we'll now know. You know, we equally have to look at both NEC and NEMSA, the ones that certify the meters. Because if you don't certify the meters, experience all over the world shows that, you know, the meters could be manipulated to run faster. For which immediately you put money today, before 1 week it goes. That's not the level of consumption, but as a result of manipulation. So all these things must be in place, all these issues must be in place for us to check any fraudulent activity, any sharp practice. And by then, if we do that, the sector will be seen to be working effectively.
Okay, so what will be your take on reports that NEC is planning to grant a tariff review for discos?
That seems to be their major work now. Prior to this time, you know, NEC has various responsibilities, various works they are supposed to do. But now, you know, their major responsibility now is just tariff increase, tariff increase, tariff increase. If you hear that, be rest assured that NEC will definitely increase, you know, because they are not wasting time. There's an alliance between them and the new investors over this. So Nigerians should not be surprised. But even at that, before this announcement, there's hardly any month that Nigerians will not witness increase in what they're paying. The complaint is general. You know, you don't witness decrease, but you keep on witnessing increase. So it's like NEC is increasing every other month. So I don't see the difference from what they're saying now. The major problem is that Nigerians have not decided to say no, things are not normal. Can we strengthen it?
From the workers' perspective, we understand there's been lots of manipulation and extortion of an average worker. Would you even say, or how would you rate the welfare of workers in the sector?
Well, it has not been easy, you know. Even under government control, it wasn't like it was an Eldorado, but at least there is condition of service. The employment relationship was having statutory flavor. You know, it's not like you wake up, you sack somebody. You know, even when you are paying somebody 20,000, it's regular, it's known. But these days, people who are full-time workers, the following day they bring another employer. They outsource you to somebody outside, to a company owned by one of them. So you see, in a place, in a company, you are working maybe for AEDC. You have employees of A company, B company, C company, almost 20 of them, controlling the workers in the sector. Meanwhile, the same AEDC may be paying them 100,000 for those workers, and they will pay the workers maybe 50,000 from the money. So you start to ask yourself, does it mean that AEDC can't manage employee relations, that they have to outsource it to people that will pay them less? So it has been difficult, and between that time and now, there has never been any salary increase or review, in the sector. In fact, those of them in the generating companies, especially a big power station, have said totally no to unionization.
To the issue of unionization, how would you say the engagement has been in this work?
Well, it has been interesting. The major disadvantage we have is that we are having a very critical product. The product we are having in power is such that if we want to behave like unionists, the whole economy will be grounded. But the major challenge as well is that the regulators of labor practices have not been able to remind them that if you instigate problem here, the whole country will suffer. I could remember an action of December 2019. The Speaker House of Rep was clear that please, you should not take any action, just for one day. Meanwhile, they are not talking to the employers. As we talk now, places like a power station, are still resisting unionization, still resisting condition of service, and it doesn't take us 24 hours to shut the system. And then Nigerians will be calling, they will be appealing to us. As at now, they have no appeal to them. Because this patience doesn't last forever. Have patience, have patience. There is a balance in, the relationship, power relation there. There is a clear balance. You can see from what I'm telling you that they have been, at the attack point. And then any moment we can still balance the power. And when we balance the power, that is when people hear. Why the generating companies, especially Igwe and others, have been raising their heads as if they have much powers. Nobody is talking. But one day, and that will be soon, when we decide to do what we are supposed to do, the whole country will have it. But must we do that, and the whole country suffers, before a company, decides to obey the laws? If you watch from what Biden is doing, he has even signed a law, of unionization and whatever. And Nigeria is signatory to all the ILO conventions, on unionization, collective bargaining, and they are not doing it. And there is no rule in this country. There is no agency in this country that could tell them do the right thing. But tomorrow, when we cry because we have been beaten, everybody will be raising issues. And it's going to happen.
What would be your message towards the regulators in the sector, especially as regards the issue of casualization, outsourcing of workers, which is prevalent not just in the electricity sector, but in every sector across the country?
Well, that's a sign of things not being normal. That is a policy that is going with this issue of market, and privatization. Ordinarily, government agencies, will not engage people under casual, will not engage Nigerians under a casual arrangement, But what we are seeing here now is that, especially in the oil and gas sector, in the banking sector, and of late, in the power sector, they are busy outsourcing, We've been engaging them, but the monsters are still coming up. Because you will not be there when somebody will go and take contract employment. Somebody will get taken from an outsourced company, and you see him in the workplace. So what we have decided to do is to unionize everybody we see in the workplace. Now, and trace their employers, and make sure that their employers, pay what they should pay. Make sure that they have pension policy, medical policy, and all that. If at the end of the day, it is higher, it is lower, or it is equal to what should be in the sector, then it's left for all of us to look at it holistically and know the best form of employment relationship.
Thank you very much for the insights you've given us on the electricity sector. And of course, Nigerians are hoping that probably the presidential committee to look into the increase in tariff would be maybe more active and more conversational about the issues as it affects workers and Nigerians at large.
Thank you.
And that's all we can take on to this edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.